This is Varun Dutt from IT Mandi. I'm going to be telling you about Natural Docs, which allows us to create large documents in HTML format from your code automatically. Welcome to the course on Large Applications Practicum. In this lecture, we are going to look at how we can generate automated documentation from code using Natural Docs. So let's get started. So first question is, why do we need code documentation? So every line of code you write is not necessarily obvious. Sometimes when you write your own written code, you do not understand it after a short period of time, and many complex algorithms are not very readable, at least from the source code. In addition, coders don't like to document the code for some reason. Maybe it was probably a waste of time, because when you're coding, you want to focus more on the logic than writing documentation about it. Unfortunately, in industry, there is a big emphasis on documenting your code. Here, we are going to review certain techniques that could be used to document code while it is being written using languages. Particularly, example is Natural Docs that is close to code itself. In industry, why we want to document the code is because when new people work on your code, they can read the documentation and understand the logic behind your code. So what is Natural Docs? Natural Docs is an open source documentation generator for multiple programming languages. It's an open source documentation creation tool, and it has APIs for C, C++, Java, PHP, Python, Perl, PLSQL, etc. So it's a very powerful documentation tool which can work across a large number of programming languages. You document your code in a syntax that reads like plain English. However, the syntax is natural, close to the coding conventions of a programming language. Natural Docs will generally scan your code using its utility and look at certain parts of the code for its own documentation constructs, and then it will build a high quality HTML documentation from it. You can download Natural Docs, start using, and generally in older versions, Perl was a requirement, but with Natural Docs 2.3, it is just double click, install, and configuration and start using it. So, if you want to understand how to use Natural Docs, we need to go to this website where we want to install Natural Docs. So if you go to this web page, let me open it for you. This will open a page called Natural Docs, and as it says, it is download free and open source. So you can click this, and when you click this, it will take you to a download page where you can download it for Windows and for other platforms. And 2.3 is the most recent stable release of Natural Docs. So I've already downloaded Natural Docs and then double click the executable file to install the Natural Docs. And then once you have installed the Natural Docs, it is recommended that you go to the guides, getting started, and go into the install and download and install part. And as it says, for Windows machine which I'm using, you just need to download it, and once you've downloaded it, you need to have .NET 3.5 or higher available. Generally on Windows 10 and 11 that is the case, and generally if you're using Windows 7 or later, you generally have it. So now once you have installed Natural Docs, you need to be able to configure Natural Docs. So first thing is that you need to copy this whole thing, and basically this is running Natural Docs from its executable which has got installed on your computer in the program files x86 folder using configuration. And here, if you see, if I minimize, my Natural Docs has actually got installed. If I open my computer, my Natural Docs has got installed in my C:, and within C:, program files, and within program files you can see a Natural Docs folder. So this is the executable file which we need to invoke, and this is being invoked. Now the thing is that it also needs to know where does the documentation decide, where does your port decide which is to be used for creating the documents. So for this particular purpose, I am in week 4 and I have already an activity which you will be shown at the end of the lecture. And this activity basically consists of 2 C++ files, one which is a factorial calculating program and another one which is a binary search tree program. And the idea is we need to create documentation for these 2 files. So what generally you have to do, you have to create 3 folders. One is the config folder, one is the documentation folder, and one is the source folder. And then you need to give the path of these 3 folders as part of the shortcut. So if you see on my desktop, I have a shortcut called Natural Docs. How did I create it? I right clicked it, I went into new and I chose shortcut. And then you have to basically set the properties of the shortcut. And the properties of the shortcut, as you can see, I have already put it, the target. So it is referring to the C colon where the Natural Docs had been installed. But in addition to that, I have also given path to the week 4 activity 4 config folder. Remember, I had created it right here in week 4 activity 4, the config folder. I am giving a path to that. And then I am passing this flag called pause before exit, so that when I double click the shortcut, the window opens, but it doesn't close till I hit up key. So this is all set. Now if I double click Natural Docs, we can see it runs and it searches for source files and things. But before we do this, we need to configure it. So if you open the config folder, you will see that 3 folders will get created. So you have to open the project folder, and generally you can open it in any editor. In this case, I can open it in Notepad. And generally, first thing is that you need to write down, there are different sections in the source file, and you need to write down one particular title of your project. For example, in my case, my project is actually factorial calculating program. So I've written title factorial. And then in the source code section, I have to define, in the source code function, I have to define where is my source folder. So source folder is actually located at the same level as the config folder, but in the source directory right here. So I have written that. You can also give the full path to the source folder, which is this path, and it will also work. And then the third thing is we also need to give a path to the place where the documentation will be created. And this is the HTML output folder, which has been given, which is my documentation folder. As you can see, there is a documentation folder as well. And generally these folders are blank. Only config folder will have these 3 files because I have run Natural Docs for the first time. Once it is done, I am all set and I can actually start using Natural Docs. So what I have done, I have put my source files in my source folder. And now if I double click Natural Docs, you see it says found 2 source files in one folder, no changes detected. So if I had done some annotation in the file, it would have detected some changes. But if I hit this, and now if I go into activity 4 and documentation, you will see that it has created the documentation with an index file. If I open it, you can see that it has created nice documentation of this code. And if I click factorial.cpp, I can actually see factorial in some num function finds the factorial of a number. So how does this all get created? The secret is that in my factorial file, if I go into the source code in my factorial file, which I will open it for you, where I have defined my factorial function just above this, I have written 2 lines of code, which is the comments, which I have written function, colon, and then the name of the function as it is factorial, and then I have written finds a factorial of a number. So now you can see that these 2 lines, when Natural Docs runs, it searches every file, particularly in this case factorial.cpp file, for this type of statement just above the function and creates documentation from these 2 lines. So this is all about Natural Docs, how you install it and how you run it. Let's go back to the lecture and move forward. So remember, in earlier versions of Natural Docs, if you're specifically using version 1, there were a set of steps, including installation of Perl, and then calling Natural Docs using Perl, defining the 3 source directory or source directories on the command line. But this method has now changed to the method I just taught you by configuring the project file in the config folder, and then defining the paths of the source documentation so that we can create HTML documentation. So now I have also shown you how to create certain document, but suppose in your file we are talking about C++ program or some program where you have a function called multiply. So you can start out a command and end a command in that source file. You can write function : multiply, multiplies 2 integers and return the result. Remember, this multiply and this multiply should have the same, should be written in the same way. If this multiply differs from this multiply, the source code will not, the Natural Docs will not be able to generate any documentation for you. Index.html file will not be created in the document folder. So if you now double click the Natural Docs shortcut, you will get, and the Natural Docs will get created. And if you open the index file in the browser, you will see a documentation like this, like the way we saw for factorial. So here is a more detailed documentation from Natural Docs. You can see that there's a multiply, and we have started out a command. We've written function multiply, which is a function, multiply 2 integers, parameters. These are the 2 parameters. It accepts x and y. So it says x dash first integer, y dash second integer, and remember these are tab with parameter being colon. And then we have return, and the 2 integers multiplied together is the return statement. And then it also says C also divide, and this is basically hyperlinking. So there is a function called divide in the same code which we are referring to. So if we click that, we will be able to, in the documentation, we will be able to go to the definition of divide. So if you run the code, again Natural Doc, and open the index file in the browser, you will see documentation like this, where you can see the parameter defined, 2 integers multiplied together as the return type, and C also divide, which if you click will be able to take you to the documentation of divide. So now this is called the topic line, which we have already defined, and it is written as function : multiply. So every one of these comments you write called topics are going to start with generally a topic line, like function keyword from a : title. In this case, it's a function multiply, so we have written function : multiply. And there are a lot of keywords like function, class, variable, which you can define. The other parts of the topic line is the title. It should match whatever is you're documenting, in this case the function multiply. So remember, this multiply, the way it is written with M capital, should match with the multiply written in the code. This multiply should be the same. Natural Docs is case sensitive, even if your programming language isn't. So make sure that you write your function in the same way as you've defined in your code. So you can also add headings to your documentation output just by ending the line with a colon or having a blank line above it. So for example, if you write a line like this and then you leave a blank line and then you write heading : and some text under it, so this is how it will appear. So this will allow you to create a heading, and remember that there should be a blank line above it, where there is a blank line above it. So you must have a blank line above the heading or it will not work. You can skip the blank after it but not before it. So now we also have definition list. So we have already seen this first dash, this is the first item, second, and see this is second line, but it will appear as the first line within the first line itself till you so this is the how you can create a list, and if you do this, this is how it will appear. And this is also called the definition list. As you can use more than one line to finish the definition. It won't stop until you skip a line, and indentation doesn't matter either. So even if the second description line wasn't indented to match the first, it would still be considered part of it. So now third is this divide, which is called the linking, and you have already seen the example of divide, and when you hover over it, it will also show you the definition of divide, where there is already Natural Docs written on top of divide. The definition has been created on top of divide as well. So with this, I will stop my lecture, this part. I have taken the material from the Natural Docs website. I would like to thank my TAs for making the slide. And now is the time for activity. So in this activity, we are going to basically try downloading, installing natural logs, which we have already done, and I have shown you how to do it. And then we need to create a project. We need to create the 3 folders. We need to define the path to them in the config folder, in the project folder, project file, and then copy the factorial CPP in the source or the SRC folder as I did. And then we can add comments like we did in the lecture, save the file, and then double click natural docs to be able to run it. And then you will be able to see the documentation. So this is an activity for making you try natural docs. In the next lecture, we will make again with more advanced concepts in natural docs. Thank you.